Welcome to SAS Daily Podcast. Without you guys, this wouldn't be possible. I want to thank you guys for subscribing. There's no need to introduce me or Tracy tonight because all I got to say is, here we go. What's up, Goldberg?
Tracy, should I bill him for that? Should I bill Seth for that, Tracy?
I'd give him one free.
There you go. All right, Tracy, go ahead. You can have a here we go or it's all over. Actually, I don't do that. I'm actually honored that you would start that way. So thank you very much, Seth.
How are you doing today, Bill?
Mike.
Oh, look at that. Okay, so when I lived in Georgia, any time I stopped anywhere for gas, for groceries, are you related to the wrestler? I'd be like, yeah, he's my little brother. I guys only played football at the University of Georgia. So, there's only one Goldberg family in the entire world, obviously, right, boys? So
I was taking bets with my brother. This is no lie. How soon it would be, I would call you Bill. And this is what I have wrote right here beside me. So I don't do that.
I love it. So Tracy, Seth, my first Bellator, I had written Octagon with a big X and Jimmy. And I did not say Octagon, but after the show was over, I asked Jimmy, I go, did I call you Joe? He goes, yeah, a couple times. I go, come on, Jimmy. He goes, all right, more than a couple times. So it's all good. It's all good. When Bill Goldberg and I finally met, it was actually really cool. He's a really, really cool dude. And he is a big, big dude. But it was like we were brothers because he gets that too. Are you related to the announcer? But yeah, I used to get it in Georgia. I swear to God, everywhere I went, Well, I did have an uncle, Bill, may he rest in peace. My dad's uncle was Bill. So yeah, I'm related to Bill Goldberg. There you go.
Okay. My bad about that. My fault, man.
Good, Seth. I love it. It's a good way to start and have fun.
How are you doing today though, Mike?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm 1 week away from my debut show with BYB Extreme, Data 5000's group. They invited me to the show back in May, and they have this Trigon, which is insane. And I watched these guys go at it. I watched the combatants, Tracy and Seth. And I mean, I'm the guy who loves to say, it is all over, just like that. And pretty much every fight is going to be that case when you talk about the BYB Extreme. And they're going places. And I think Paige Van Zandt was someone who brought a lot of attention to the bare knuckle world. And we've built from there. Paulie Maldonado is my broadcast partner. I mean, two-time world champion, great boxer, great commentator. So we're going to do it right. But 1 week from tonight, I'll be at the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino, Hollywood, Florida, doing BYB Extreme 6. And I cannot wait to say inside the Trigon. That's what they call it, the Trigon.
Oh, man, that's legendary, man. That is legendary for a big combat sports fan like me. You are the voice of combat sports for sure. And people can buy that on pay-per-view, right?
Actually, next week we are free. Next week we are free on our YouTube channel. We're going to grow this thing. Our owner, Mike Vasquez, wants to spread the love, and Data 5000. So Data 5000's background, as you guys might know, is that backyard brawl. I mean, he had the whole setup, the yard, and he and Kimbo Slice had this great rivalry back in the day. May Kimbo rest in peace. And he's brought it to the Trigon into TV, and now we want to bring it to the mainstream. And we've got some talented men and women that are going to compete. So we're going to be on the YouTube channel, the BYB Extreme YouTube channel next week. So everybody gets a feel for it. And then big plans as we move towards 2022 for our broadcast availability, and very excited about it.
See, like for me, when the bare knuckle thing first started years ago with, the guys like Dan Severn and Tank Abbott, Royce Gracie and those guys, it captured everything because that's where you could see, a 220-pound guy take on a 400-pound guy and whoop the snot out of him.
Yeah.
When they started sanctioning it and putting on, the gloves and the weight classes, I personally lost a little interest in it because I enjoyed watching that little guy beat the snot out of a big guy. So with the bare knuckle coming back like this, I'm super excited to start watching this thing and seeing, some real fighting. I don't want to see guys roll around on the floor. I know it's all jiu-jitsu and different kinds of martial arts. I want to see them duke it out. Bare knuckle.
Tracy, you're right. I think over the past 2 decades, and Seth, you've witnessed this with our fans as well, that the education level and the appreciation for the ground game and takedowns and takedown defense and submissions and finishes. I mean, if you want to talk about a vicious knockout, you have the same level of aggression with a Frank Mir armbar breaking Tim Sylvia's arm, or when he's popped, the Kimura and he popped the shoulder of Big Nog. That said, though, we still want confrontation. And we want guys to stand, bite down on the mouthpiece, Diego Sanchez, Gilbert Melendez style, and throw and go until somebody is put out. And that is what the love is. That's in our DNA. I mean, Dana White said it years ago. If you had, and let's go with our Cincinnati, Kentucky roots. If you had Boomer on one corner throwing footballs, you had Barry Larkin on another playing baseball. I'll go with my dad's favorite player from the University of Cincinnati and the Royals. You had the Big O shooting threes, and you had a fight in the fourth quarter, on the fourth corner of that street. The three of us would run over and we'd watch that fight. And
absolutely.
It's just the way we are, just the way we are. And so there's nowhere to hide in this Trigon. It is the smallest combat sports area that exists in any type of combat sport. It's a tiny little triangle. It's going to be an absolute blast. And I cannot wait to get started.
Yeah, I heard you say it was like the old days of the UFC.
Yeah, very much so. And what we saw with that, Seth, was people trying to accept it and getting it into the mainstream. And I believe that's what we're going to find here with the bare knuckle. And both organizations are doing a great job. BKFC is doing a great job. And like I said, Paige Van Zandt turned a lot of heads when she didn't sign with Bellator after the UFC because her husband, Austin Vanderford, fights for Bellator. But now that you're starting to see some of the people come over and do the bare knuckle, and much to Tracy's point, boom, and it's over, it's going to grow. And so having two healthy organizations is great. Now, are we going to be competitors? Of course, you're always going to have that little rivalry. That said, as the sport grows, it's better for BYB and better for everybody else. But, we want to be number one, and I'm going to try to do my part to help us do so.
Sure. And, I'm not knocking, the ground guys. I know it's a lot of technical stuff and to get, to a submission hold, but it seems like it takes 30 minutes to get to that point sometimes. And it's just like, come on, guys, stand up and duke it out for a little bit here.
Yeah. And that's, much to your point, Tracy, back in the day, there were no time limits.
Right.
You remember Hoist in that tournament. I mean, he beat Timo, but he was so beat up after that fight, he couldn't continue in the tournament. But the beauty, though, was Gracie Jiu-Jitsu coming to North America. Elio Gracie weighed about 110 pounds.
Little guy,
Let's think about that street fight again. Nobody really stands and trades Stephen Thompson, Lyoto Machida style, Anderson Silva style. Somebody's going to tackle somebody in a street fight. That's just how it goes. And so the guard from the Gracies and Elio Gracie, how do you protect yourself if you're the smaller man and you're on the bottom? And then it built from there. So you have guys like Ken Shamrock, who we thought was beating the living piss out of Royce Gracie. And then all of a sudden, because Royce snuck around, grabbed his gi, choked him out. Nobody knew what the Gracies were doing back then. That's what made it so fascinating. But back then, it wasn't Tracy against Goldie or Seth against Tracy. It was jiu-jitsu against boxing, kickboxing against wrestling, right? And then now it's become everybody does everything very well, and they are truly mixed martial artists. And the cool thing about bare knuckle is, unlike traditional boxing guys, there's a lot more dirty boxing that is allowed. So an MMA background and a Muay Thai background, the utilization of the clinch and dirty boxing adds a really fun element to what you will see inside the Trigon a week from tonight.
Yeah, and back in the day, those guys really didn't train a lot. I mean, it was, hey, this guy knocked out 6 people in a bar brawl and put him on TV,
Yeah, well, Tank Abbott's bio was the greatest. So Seth, we could get these bios on every fighter and then have miscellaneous notes. And on Tank's bio, it said, I have a record of 245-5 in street fights. God, I love that. And I remember asking, Tank one time, like, who beat you in those 5? I don't know, but I beat him up since then. That's the greatest. But yeah, I mean, you know, 2 men will enter the octagon, only one will leave. I think that's kind of what we're looking at with the Trigon. That said, it still has all the elements of the respect of a martial art, because boxing is a martial art. Let's not forget that boxing, wrestling is a martial art. So the respect after battle is still going to exist. And that's the thing that I've always appreciated about it.
Yeah, and we get a lot of "it's all over."
Just like that.
I think people would rather hear you say.
That's all right. I'm having fun listening to you say it, Seth. This is good.
Yeah, man. I remember playing the old UFC games and stuff, and creative player hearing when you knock somebody out in the first round, it is all over.
Oh man, I remember when I was getting set to do the video game the first time. And my broadcast hero is a guy named Bill Clement. I'm a hockey player, played hockey my entire life. Got my jumbo Joe Thornton jersey up over here. Big Bobby Clark fan, so big Flyers fan. So I'm doing hockey at ESPN, and Billy Clement is my hero. So years later, I'm getting ready to do the first video game for EA. And Billy C had done a bunch of the video games with Gary Thorne for the NHL for EA Sports. And I was all excited. He goes, "Goldie, don't get too excited. This will be the most mundane process you've ever gone through in your life." I'm like, "Oh, come on, man. No, it can't be that bad, Billy." I'm talking about killing trees. All those trees you have in that beautiful beach background there, Seth, we killed them. We killed them, and then they grew, and we killed some more. Because it would be, "Tracy is the new lightweight champion. Tracy is the new welterweight champion. Tracy defends his middleweight belt." Over and over over. And then I started to think, all right, don't feel so bad for yourself, Golden, because there are dudes who have to edit all that and make it hit at the right time in a video game, which is pretty fascinating. But yeah, it was pretty cool to do it. I remember the first one came out, they put us like a little on camera, and it was like that old, was it the Pepsi commercial where the guy's head just kind of went like this?
Oh yeah, the Max Headroom guy.
Yeah, Max Headroom. And my son's like, "Dad, that's horrible." And I'm like, "Oh, I don't think I can disagree." But it is fun. It is fun. It was fun to like hear Cole and his buddies play. My son is 21 now, but to hear them like in the other room in the house, and you hear me going, and I'm like, "What? Oh, they're playing the game."
Oh, that's me. That's me.
So,
okay.
Hey, I know that voice.
Yeah. How did it? Was it weird to hear yourself on your son's video game?
And you know, yes and no. It was more cool because I think that, you know, he liked doing it with his buddies, and his buddies all know who I am and what I do and what I've been blessed to do for a very long time. And a lot of his buddies were hockey teammates, and I was one of the coaches of his hockey team throughout his, you know, from when he was 6 to when he was 19 years old. So it was more just kind of cool because, you know, his teammates would be going, "Dude, man, that's Coach Mike. That's Coach Mike. And Coach Mike is right there. Coach Mike, can you do what you just did there?" Like, "Sure, yeah, you know. Tracy by knockout, Seth by submission." Even though we said we're going to stay away from submissions, we're going to give you the win anyway, Seth. So yeah, it was more cool than anything else.
That is really cool.
I love submissions though with UFC and stuff. Like obviously Conor McGregor got choked out by Khabib, right?
Yep. And you know, if you really want to go back to submissions, and we were talking about this before we got started. I remember years ago, I was told like a submission can be as violent or as dramatic a finish as a great knockout. And that was true when you looked at a guy like Frank Mir, because when Frank Mir broke Tim Sylvia's arm, that was like, you know, not quite Edson Barboza's spinning kick on Terry Edom, but that was a vicious finish. That was like, holy. And then the same with the pop shoulder with Big Nog. And then the show I went to, the UFC in Phoenix, not all that long ago, and he had the dude's arm was broken, and he's trying to tap, and he couldn't tap because his arm was broken. So yeah, the submission can be as violent. I remember Nate Diaz with the triangle. Remember that one years ago? And he gives the double birds because he knew he had the triangle leaked in, and Nathan gives the double birds because he knew it was over, pulled down on the head. So it's a fun part of the game. It's something that Joe really, really loves, the kinetic chess. And I've enjoyed watching that part of the game develop. But at the end of the day, I think I'm a lot like a lot of people. I'm a Muay Thai driven, striking driven guy. And I like to see people work on their feet. And
me too.
That's why, you know, Anderson Silva is, you know, when people ask who's my all-time favorite, there's 3 or 4 that I could put up there. There's more than 3 or 4, but I would say Anderson because of the magical things that he was able to do on his feet. That said, maybe the greatest thing he ever did was the triangle choke in the 5th round against Chael Sonnen after getting beat up for 4 rounds. But Anderson was magical with his striking. So
yeah,
I'll take the Spider. I'll take the
Spider. He just won a boxing fight, actually.
I watched every minute of it, and I had the biggest smile on my face, Seth. I knew that he was taking it seriously. I knew that he would be good. I didn't know he would be that good because, you know, rust and age and all that. And when he got his confidence, he started dropping his hands and doing this to Chavez Jr. And I don't think Chavez Jr. took him seriously enough. And even Senior, as you guys know, who had the 4-round exhibition with, you know, with the old rival with Camacho Jr., because may Hector Sr. rest in peace. I don't know if you guys watched the pay-per-view. It was crazy. After the 3rd round, it got a little nasty. And so Senior takes off his headgear. He's like, screw this. Like, let's go. Like, let's go. You want to do this? Let's go. And Macho Jr., to his credit, said, no, I'm not going to do it. He took it off his headgear at first. But all the doctors said, you know, to Julio Cesar Chavez Sr., who really is the designer and the founder of the Mexican style of boxing, that aggression, you know, all the doctors said, do this, go ahead, you're fine, but keep the headgear on. And the family said, if you don't wear the headgear, we're not going to let you do it. And I thought Camacho Jr., Hector Jr. was cool having him put it back on. But they went at it and it was fun. But he was upset with his sons because they went up to altitude together. And Canelo's brother beat his one son, and then Anderson beats his other. And then Chavez Sr. he really did. It was a ton of fun watching him work against Camacho Jr. But Anderson was tremendous. And now, you know, Vitor Belfort is going to fight the Golden Boy, Oscar De La Hoya. And, cannot wait. Cannot wait for that one. And again, now, here's the difference between Ben Askren, even T. Wood, who's a good striker and very powerful. Vitor, arguably, you could say still has the fastest hands in UFC history. At least top 5, arguably. Because in his prime, his hands were the thing. Anderson was more all 8 limbs. Vitor's hands were lightning fast, striking based. Anderson Silva, Curitiba, shoot the box, striking based. That's the difference with these guys as opposed to, and I don't take anything away from Ben Askren or Tyron Woodley or even Frank Mir, but they were ground-based guys that then looked to try to box. Connor was a striker first. His transition was a little bit better than what we saw from the others. I think Vitor and Oscar is going to be a hell of a show.
It's going to be a knockdown.
Yeah, I really do. I agree. And I'm a big Vitor fan too.
Now, these wrestlers that try to make the transition, I'm not taking anything away from wrestling because them guys are tough. I mean, it takes a toll on your body when you're being slammed every night and punched in the face because those punches aren't fake.
Nope.
You know,
either your body slamming on the ground after you do a double flip at 290 pounds.
Yeah, and some of them do it from the top of a cage. You know,
that's it. Yep.
But they get to that. They want to make the transition over to UFC or something similar, and they find out that it just is a complete other level.
Yeah.
And a lot of them fail. Shamrock was one of the fortunate ones who did. Sid made somewhat of a transition, did fairly well. But, you know, these guys who, you know, it kills me. These guys are, well, wrestling's fake. Well, no, it's really not. It's no less than a NASCAR driver being a less of an athlete. I mean, you do that for 500 miles and it's 180 degrees in that car.
Absolutely.
But when they make that other level, there's only been a handful to ever make it.
And Brock, the perfect example of what you're talking about, Tracy, what I think would be Brock Lesnar. Brock was 106-5, Seth, at the University of Minnesota. I mean, that's legit. 106-5. as a collegiate wrestler. He is a full-on All-American stud wrestler, but his game never branched out. If he wasn't able to get that takedown, then he wasn't going to be able to have the success. And then the diverticulitis hurt him in that. But when Brock hit Randy behind here, you know, with that size 22 glove, it didn't take much. That's the biggest man. That's, of all the people I met, Bill Goldberg, we were saying, joking about before, that's the one man's hand who Shaq would be number one, but number two would be Brock Lesnar. Swear to God, that dude he's huge.
He looks Brock big even on TV. I mean, he's just huge.
Yeah. And he's shredded. Yeah. I mean, he would cut to make 265. Brock did a good job, but Brock didn't want to branch out into the other striking and different things that were needed for him to be successful. And another thing that people forget, if you want to go way, way back, let's go back to Chuck Liddell. People forget that you could make the argument that Chuck's most valuable skill was his wrestling ability. Chuck was a great collegiate wrestler. And Chuck used what we call sprawl and brawl. Because if any of the three of us are fighting that dude with a mohawk and tattoos on his head, we're going to try to put him on his back as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Put him on his back because he can't kick us in the head from there. And once you shot once, twice, and he stopped those, it was only a matter of time before he was knocking his opponent out. So again, you go back to the wrestlers, Tracy, Chuck used it in reverse. And then there was that period of time, you being a good Ohio boy, you being a good Kentucky guy, we had the Ohio State monsters. We had Randleman as a UFC champion.
Yeah.
We had Mark Coleman, both national champions, heavyweight wrestlers from, you know, the Ohio State University.
Right.
Obviously, you had Mark Kerr, you know, All-American wrestler. You had Randy Couture, champion wrestler. So for a while there, the wrestlers really dominated the Ultimate Fighting Championship because they could dictate where the fight took place. Much to my point about Chuck, he just did it in reverse. He made sure the fight took place on its feet by utilizing his wrestling and his takedown defense.
And relatively size, Chuck wasn't near as big as some of those guys either. His, you know, like a Brock Lesnar or Shamrock, he didn't have that cut muscle to him, but he just knew how to do it.
He did. And it's one of those things. And, you know, Ryan Bader's a good buddy of mine. He lives here in the desert. I live in Phoenix. And, you know, I remember when he was going to fight Mitrione in Bellator and Matt had really worked on his wrestling, he said. And I love Matt. Matt's a great athlete. And to do what he did in MMA without really having the background, but he's a great athlete. You play in the NFL, you're an athlete. Play in the center.
Yeah.
And, you know, obviously he was there with Drew Brees at Purdue. We're keeping it all in the Big Ten. We're keeping it all happy right now. And, you know, Matt said, I've really worked on my wrestling. And Ryan, not arrogantly, said, he could work on his wrestling his entire life. I've been doing this since I was 6 years old. And that's the difference. I mean, Chuck wrestled when he was a little kid. And so that natural hip movement, that sprawl, it's muscle memory. And you're not going to defeat the muscle memory. And you're not going to defeat those wrestlers because they've been doing it forever. That's like, you know, Ronda's success early on. Well, not early on, pretty much until her last two fights was her judo and her armbar. And as a judoka, nobody was going to be better. Nobody. She was the first American female ever to medal in judo in the Olympic Games. Her mother was the first American female to medal at the World Championships. So I got a good story for you. I'm a big hockey guy. Chris Letang, all-star defenseman from the Pittsburgh Penguins, Montreal boy, trains in the summers with GSP and Rory and everybody. And I'm outside the locker room one day, and Tanger comes out like, Goalie. I got that question for you. If I fight Ronda Rousey, what would happen? And I go, she'd throw you over her hip, and she'd break your arm. Oh, bullshit, Goldie, that is bullshit. I'm 200 pounds. I hit hard. I'm somewhere like George than I do Chris right now, but they're both French Canadian. And later I found out that there was a bet in the entire locker room of what I would say when Tanger asked me what would happen if he fought Ronda. I said, well, yeah, if you hit her, she's in trouble. But judo's leverage, man. It doesn't matter how big or how strong you are, Tanger. And if she gets you down, she gets your arm, forget it. And Sidney Crosby comes out and he starts laughing. He's like, I told you, Goldie would say that. Pay up. And I'm like, oh, Tanger was heartbroken. And then Rick Tocchet, who was an assistant coach at the time with the Penguins, one of my favorite all-time players as a Flyer. He was a Penguin too, but as a Flyer. Toc comes out. He goes, Goldie, here's the deal. I will bet you every dime I have that I'll go in and I will knock her ass out. That's it. Put every dollar you have on it right now. And I go, Toc, I'm going through a divorce right now, and money's kind of, limited, and it's kind of, not available. They're not good assets.
Right.
We laugh a little bit, we're joking, but not joking, like real, not real. Kidding, not kidding. And he goes, so am I. I was just kidding. Let's just put $10 on it. And so that was my Ronda Rousey story. But my point is that if you go to someone's area that they've been doing since they were 3 years old, you're not going to defeat them. Anybody want to go pure jiu-jitsu against Royce Gracie, you're probably still going to lose.
You're going to lose, yeah.
Unless you've been doing jits as long as he has.
Well, look at CM Punk. He tried to do UFC and he failed miserably.
He did, and he worked hard, man. And Duke Rufus is a good friend of mine, and Duke said he put in the time, he put in the work, he was there, but he couldn't pull it all together to showcase what he hoped would be a career in mixed martial arts. Jake Hager fought in Bellator a couple of times. Now, Jake wrestled at Oklahoma. He grew up with that Oklahoma wrestling background. He's not quite as, I think, dominant as a wrestler as Brock was, but Jake worked with Josh Rafferty, good Cincinnati boy,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The Ultimate Fighter. Great friends with Rich Franklin. So down with Batista, and they're all working out. And, I see Rafferty, and I hadn't seen Josh in forever. And, we started talking about Skyline Chili, of course, and about Cincinnati, little La Rosas, and checking up on why our Bengals are still no good, which wasn't a very long conversation. They're just not good still.
Well, just remember, 11 strikeouts, you still get the free pizza.
There you go. I like that. So, he's done a good job with it, but the striking part is still something that if you haven't done it your entire life, is going to take a little while to catch up to those who have.
Yeah, sure. Like Ben Askren against Jake Paul.
Yeah. And here's the deal. And I know Jake is Jake, and he's making a lot of money being whatever you want to call it, being obnoxious, being polarizing. I mean, Conor, I absolutely love. Known him a long time. I know both Conors. I know Conor the showman. I know Conor the sportsman. I know Conor the cool Irish dude. That's 3 actually. So he's got split personalities. I think we all know that though. And you could say the same about Jake Paul. But Jake's making a ton of money being polarizing. And last time I checked, that's how Conor became the highest paid athlete in the world, is by being polarizing and entertaining. For Ben, he's an Olympic wrestler. Okay, but let's think about this. You got your high school state champions, you have your national champion, you have your All-American staff, but then you have an Olympics. You're talking the Olympics, man.
That's a whole nother level.
Like that. But Ben never was a striker. He never was a striker. He utilized his wrestling, had enough striking to work himself towards the takedown so he could be successful in MMA. Again, here's a guy who worked with Duke Rufus. He worked his butt off, but it just wasn't going to happen. And Logan and Jake, they work hard on their striking, and I don't know what's going to happen as they get to different opponents at different levels. I mean, Logan looked pretty good against Floyd at times. Now, did Floyd train, this and that? We could debate that all day.
Yeah.
But my point is for Ben, I mean, it really was. He was a fish out of water, and he could have worked, much like I said with Mitrione and Bader's example. He could have worked on his hands for 2 or 3 years, and they might have still just been above average. And I say that with huge respect to Ben Askren, because, again, last time I checked, he went to the Olympics, and none of the other, us three didn't go, and most of the people watching right now didn't go. So, he took a lot of flack for it, but last time I checked, he went to the Olympics. So, little teaspoon of shut the fuck up for those who are all over Ben.
And I couldn't have you on without asking about, obviously, tomorrow's UFC main event, Conor and Dustin. That's going to be a hell of a fight.
It really is. And they've been good for each other. And I mean, I remember when Dustin Poirier first, came into the UFC, and he was kind of in the shadows of Rich Clemente and Tim Crater. But he was that tough Louisiana boy, went down to American Top Team. And just the fact that Dustin is still around and competing at this level, I give him huge, huge credibility and huge props. And he's a great dude. And Conor has helped his retirement fund grow at a massive pace.
Oh, yeah.
And Conor lost to him. Here's the deal. And I'll take you back to Nate 1 and Nate 2. Short notice, Nate Diaz steps in. Conor fights Nate Diaz years ago. I said straight out to everybody, Nate is going to beat Conor. He's going to beat him because of the reach, because of the boxing advantage, because of the size advantage. And Conor's not going to be able to get out of the way of that. And the reach was the difference in that first fight when Nate beat Conor. In the rematch, up until about the last week, I had Nathan again. And then I watched Conor's training and some of the countdown shows. And basically Conor people don't understand his work ethic. People don't understand that this guy doesn't just show up and say, who the fuck is this? Take his check and go home. He works his ass off. And he's worked his ass off for a long time to get to this level. And he is one of the greatest in the world, and will always be one of the greatest in the world. He took that second fight, you guys, and he said, all right, when Tracy hit me in that first fight, he was coming at 17 degrees. If I can move in like 2 degrees and come back at him at 19 degrees, I'm going to have success. That's how obsessed Conor was with adjusting his fight plan to get revenge, if you will, and redemption against Nate in the second fight. And guess what? He did. So I will tell you, and I know John Kavanaugh very well, we've talked. Conor has made all those adjustments. Now, will it be enough? We're going to find out tomorrow. But Conor will be a better Conor in this fight than he was in the last fight with Dustin. And it's got nothing to do with did he take it serious or anything like that. It's that he had a blueprint that did not work. And now he's been able to go back, like your NASCAR example. Now, the car ran like shit, down in Charlottesville. Yeah. And so next week, we're going to go to Birmingham, Alabama. I don't know why I said Birmingham. I don't know why Alabama's in England all of a sudden. Birmingham, Alabama. And you make adjustments to the car, right?
Right.
He's made adjustments, and I'm really excited to see how those are going to play out, because I know Dustin is put in the time, and we know how vicious he can be. And I'll be sitting right in front of it like you guys, man, and I'll be screaming, here we go.
And hopefully it is all over.
You got that right. You got that right.
Oh, can you say that for us as well?
Oh, of course, Conor McGregor wins the trilogy. Yeah, it's all over. Just like that.
Oh, that's awesome. That is
Thank
so cool.
you, man. I appreciate that so much. I'm living my childhood again.
Oh, I appreciate it.
How what was it like working with Joe? I mean, Joe seems like just an average, cool, down to earth guy.
He is, man. And the thing about working with Joe was the passion that we both had for the product and the passion we both had for the sport, and the way that every single moment, we would strive for excellence. And we wanted to be the best broadcast team in the world.
Right.
There was also a huge respect that we had for each other. And I especially had a huge respect for Joe and his knowledge of the game, and especially when it got to the ground. And I believe that's what made our partnership work so well. It made it so dynamic. But the energy that we had, we fed off each other, and we didn't do anything like special. We didn't go to dinner every night or break down fights. We just like came together and then boom, like Montana and Rice. And I hate saying that as a Bengals fan. Montana and Rice. But that was that kind of magic, right? That was that magic. And that's what Joe and I were. And he was, man. And he used to be like all fired up every show. We got the greatest job in the world. So remember, Joe in his comedy would always do he'd do that shit. So before the pay-per-view, we'd blow it up with everybody on the crew. And then right before we go on the air, Joe and I would blow it up, and then we go, but we do it to each other. And his forehead was all sweaty and greasy all the freaking time. And like, I'm like, man,
got the mink sweat.
Everybody, yeah, this is Mike Goldberg. My partner is always Joe Rogan. It was awesome. We have a great friendship. We had a great time. And, you know, a lot of people say that dynamic duo, if you will never be matched. And the biggest thing for Joe and I is we were blessed to be the soundtrack of taking the sport from where you were talking about, Tracy, to where it is going to be tomorrow night, Seth. And Joe and I were able to really go on that ride to mainstream and to legitimacy, if you will, and to properly representing the athletes. And that's what I enjoyed the most.
And, you know, when ESPN opens up the books on this in 100 years, you know, your name and Joe Rogan both is going to be in that book.
I greatly appreciate it. I've said to a couple of people, I think I'm on ESPN more now than I was when I worked for ESPN. Just the old fights and stuff. Like,
yeah.
Where's that coming from? And we go to the show a couple of weeks ago, my wife and I go with my trainer, Master McGowan, and his son. In the Who video that they play before the pay-per-views, Baba O'Reilly comes on.
Yeah.
And Teenage Wasteland, and it's got all these calls. And I said, all right, it's been a while, you know. How many calls are going to be mine? I said to my wife, Fernanda. She goes, 2. I go, that's the over-under's 2? I go, okay. We're like 2 minutes. Welcome, world, to the Ultimate Fighting Championship. And like, boom, boom, boom. And I got chills, man. I mean, I was like, wow, I really am part of the fabric. Like, really will be there forever. And my sister-in-law texted me the other day. I'm watching TSN. I'm watching all the previews, and they're using you for the beginning of this countdown show. Here we go. Here's Connor. I hope they're still paying you. I just wish Bud Light would have paid me for Here We Go. I mean, then I would be on that beach that you're on, Seth. You know? That's the next speech I've ever seen in Kentucky, by the way.
We definitely the closest thing to a beach we have is a lake beach.
You got that right. Or the mighty Ohio River. So you guys both Bengals fans?
No, I'm a Browns fan.
Oh shit. Okay, so we'll continue, Tracy and I. So I was born in Cincinnati, but I was raised in Cleveland, Seth. So I got a lot of shit at Miami of Ohio because people say, "Wait, you're from North Olmsted. Why are you rooting for the Bengals?" I'm like, I was born in Cincinnati. I grew up on the Bengals with my father. I grew up on the Reds with my father. Yeah. And I am a Bengals fan. And I don't hate the Browns. I hate the Steelers.
Yeah.
Or Michigan. That school up north is what he would say. But I'm not a Browns fan. I'm a Bengals fan. But getting back to Montana, I see Montana in an elevator at the MGM Grand years ago, and I was in awe. I'm like, holy crap, there's Joe Montana. And I just said, Joe, hey, my name is Mike Goldberg. I do the UFC. I just wanted to say that as an athlete, a human being, the way that you represent yourself is awesome. You're first class. And I just want to say thank you for everything that you've done, not only in football, but since football. It was, thank you very much. Very polite. And then I go, you did break my heart twice, though. At me, and I go, I'm a Bengals fan. And Montana, I swear to God, you guys, he sits back, he smiles, he goes, I'm not going to apologize, you know. And I was like, damn, that's good. And I'm like, well, you shouldn't. You shouldn't. But it was so perfect. It was so perfect. I was a junior in high school, Super Bowl 16, and I was actually at Joe Robbie Stadium. My first job out of school was in Sarasota. I was at Joe Robbie Stadium, Super Bowl 23. Boomer and the boys. Boomer's still my favorite. Still my favorite. And Norman Julius Esiason. Fear the Turtle, baby.
That's right.
But yeah, Montana was classic. I'm not going to apologize. I guess
and he's a class act on top of that.
He is. And that's why I was like, yeah, 1-0 you, or actually, I guess it's probably 2-0.
You don't need to apologize for that, sir.
Nope. Greatness is greatness. You got us.
Well, we're in Reds country here. They do the caravans. They come on down. They bring a lot of the players every year, and that does nothing but help them. That fan base, especially this year where they've got all these new guys, a lot of rookies out this year. And, it was just great. Marty's got ties to Ashland, Kentucky here. So he's here quite often, especially since he retired.
Yep. Parents, right?
Yeah. And I think his wife is from Ashland, I believe.
Yeah. Cause I remember seeing a big documentary and Marty was down there. So
yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, it's big Reds country down here.
Oh, I grew up listening to the Big 700 WLW.
Yeah, I still do. Yeah.
Yep. And then like seventh inning when Joe would hand it back over to Marty. Thank you, Joe. And he'd keep going, and this one belongs to the Reds.
Yep. Yeah.
74, 75, they had albums, highlight albums. And Marty, they were all the great calls. And I remember I was 10 years old and, game 6, of course, is Fisk. And then game 7 is, the Reds winning the World Series, the Big Red Machine. I'm jumping up and down. It's one of the greatest memories I have with my father. And we would listen all the time. The old lefty rounding third and heading for home. Good night, everybody. And my dad used to watch Pete at Crosley Field, man. And September 11th, 1985, on a 2-1 pitch from Eric Schau, I was there, and so was my father. And I been getting them tickets about 5 straight games because I know you guys remember that Pete went 3 for 4 against the Cubs on that Sunday that he wasn't supposed to play.
That's right.
And they switched pitchers, so because Pete was only batting from the left side at that time.
Yep.
And I gave my dad a credential. I love you, Dad, but you're a dumbass. We go down and they go, "Hey, any questions?" And I hear this, "Hey, Pete, what's next?" And I was like, I was like a producer. I was still in college.
Yeah.
I was at Miami, Ohio, but I was a producer at Channel 5. And I'm like, and then Steve Physiak looks at me and I'm like, we laugh about it now. It's one of the greatest stories about my pops, but I'm like, Dad, can't you just be silent? Like, I already snuck you in. You really have to ask me a question. What's next?
Oh, that's hilarious. That's great.
Yeah. I'm a big Pete guy. Love Pete Rose and always will. 4,000, 4192 was magical. 4256 is something that no one will ever surpass.
And if these guys playing today would listen to him how to hit, there would be no shifts being played on anybody.
No question about it. And again, I said it about Conor McGregor. Pete Rose was great because Pete Rose was Charlie Hustle. Pete Rose had a work ethic that was unlike any other.
Yeah.
He never walked. He took a walk. He sprinted to first. He went head first. Ray Plotzy's family is still no fan of the Rose family. We know that.
He's still recovering.
But yeah, Pete was Pete. And I have a shirt that says Cincinnati invented hustle. Tracy, I saw Tracy's red shirt, Seth. And we're not ignoring Seth because he's a Browns fan now. I promise you. It's just I'm just having a moment here. All right. No, I'm kidding. So a couple of times I asked Cincinnati people, do you get it? And they're like, "Oh my God, are you serious? You can't figure this out? Cincinnati invented hustle?
We can't be friends."
Yeah. That was about it. Yeah. Or you can't be my brother. Charlie Hustle. Oh,
now you get it.
Yeah.
You just watch your mind work. Give it a minute.
That's it. But Marty was classic. I remember covering the Reds back when Pete was player manager.
Oh, yeah.
Going up to the press box and Marge would bring Shotzi in the dining room, the media dining, and walk in front of everybody and put a big plate of spaghetti on the ground, and Shotzi would put it down.
That great big dog.
Oh my God, man. It was a different time.
Oh,
that redefined Little Red Corvette when he broke
that's for sure. Oh man, that is great stuff.
Were you born then, Tracy?
I was born in 72.
All right. So you were right. All right. So
I'm on the cusp there. Yeah.
All right. So Pete breaking the record at 85 was kind of like my experience with the Big Red Machine. You were 13. I was 10, 11 years old with the Big Red Machine. So
yeah,
we're good.
Yeah. My dad was a huge Reds fan. He had so much memorabilia, and it was just, I don't know if it was bred into my DNA, but I knew what the Big Red Machine was before I even knew what it was. So
yeah. And Seth, baseball wise, please don't tell me you're an Indians fan.
I don't even watch baseball.
That's fair. I'm good with that. As long as, then again, like the Indians being in the American League, it doesn't really offend us. And when the Indians were having success, I remember asking my pops one time, because he was digging the Indians because we were in Cleveland, said if the Reds ever played the Indians in the World Series, and he stopped me mid-sentence. And he goes, that might be the stupidest thing that ever came out. I'm like, oh.
Look at him now.
Yep, you're right, Dad. You're right. All right, you're right.
Well, I think pitchers should hit.
Oh man, he's. And I go back to Connor now, and this is where the science of it all and the work and the tape and everything. Pete knew every little bit of everything that was going on with every pitcher, every time, everywhere. And so there was the Charlie Hustle aspect, and there was the work ethic, and all of it. There also was a mind that just overwhelmed with baseball knowledge, and what to do against who and when, at what time, and where and how. And that's why Pete was so great.
And he was a player manager for 2 teams. A lot of people forget about the Phillies.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So, and I think he may have been one of the first.
I agree. Yeah, with 2 teams for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, I remember. So I'm talking my uncle Alan. My dad's got 2 brothers. My uncle Alan's 13 months younger. My dad passed a couple years ago. So down in Tampa not long ago, my uncle Alan is still a huge Reds fan. And we're talking about Pete, and we're telling old stories about Dad, the one I just talked about. And, we're laughing. And I said, he played pretty much, Pete played pretty much every position. And my uncle goes, other than first. And I said, actually, Uncle Al, Pete played first in Philadelphia.
Yes.
And Uncle Al's like, I call him text. He's like, no. Are you sure? I think he played third. And now, in all fairness, Uncle Al's aged a little bit. And he got about some dude who was a pretty good ball player named
Mike Schmidt. Yep.
Yeah. And I'm like, Uncle Al, Mike Schmidt. He goes, oh, yeah, Pete played first in Philadelphia.
Oh, man.
Oh, this turned into Cincinnati and Ohio and Kentucky. This is good.
It's almost like welcome home.
It really is.
But the Browns,
I've got some Skyline. The Browns are looking better right now than the Bengals.
For sure. But the Bengals have done well drafting for sure. I mean, Joe Burrow is for real. Yep. But you guys are speaking of your guys' childhood and stuff. It's crazy how you guys can I'm not trying to say you guys are old.
So how old are you? Seth?
22. I remember first time I heard you, my brother, shout out to Miles. He bought a pay-per-view of Frank Mir and Brock Lesnar. And I remember hearing that, and I watched the pay-per-view with him and hearing you and Joe commentate that. And
was that the one that he won or lost? That Brock won?
Yeah, the one he won.
Man, remember that shot of him frothing from the mouth at the cage? And the best part of that, Seth, was after you remember the interview. He says, "I'm going to go get me some Coors Light. I'm going to get on my wife." And he went on and on and on, right? Seth, you were a little dude, but that was by the time he got to the post-fight press conference, because Anheuser-Busch was our main sponsor back then. There were about 6 Bud Light bottles in front of him. So, like, Uncle Lorenzo and Uncle Dana had a little chat with Brock on the way to the press conference going, great performance. You can say what you will about your wife, but we don't drink Coors Light publicly around the UFC right now. We drink Anheuser-Busch products. And so Brock in the press conference, Seth is like I said, I'm going to drink me a Bud Light. Bud Light's actually my favorite beer. Coors Light's okay, but I like Bud Light.
Yeah, that's definitely an iconic moment. And iconic moments, what do you think the best fight that you have ever commentated is?
Man, I can look at them from so many different ways. I mean, I mentioned earlier Diego Sanchez and Gilbert Melendez. I mean, that was just, bite down on the mouthpiece and just throw. So entertainment wise, that was as good as it could get. The win for Anderson in the 5th round against Chael was like, holy shit, how did he pull that off? Chael was 1 minute and 50 seconds away from finally being a world champion. And he got caught, in the triangle. He got choked out. Now, Anderson had broken ribs going into that, and Chael beat him up, but Anderson pulled it off. The greatest fight that I ever called, man, it might have been a Conor fight. I thought, here's what I thought was going to be the greatest one, was going to be Jose Aldo, Conor McGregor. And Conor caught him early. Now, I had people say Conor beat the shit out of him. No, he didn't. Here's my take on this. There's no such thing as a lucky punch, but there's a fortunate landing. Because he's trying to punch him, he's trying to knock him out. But he was fortunate that he caught him right on the button, and he did knock him out. So it's not a lucky punch. Matt Serra did not. That was not a lucky punch, but it was a fortunate landing. That I will tell you.
I've never heard it put that way. Yeah.
That is one that I very much believe in. But the one that, Ronda losing to Holly in Australia was pretty crazy. But the ones that I remember the most, they either have BJ Penn in them or Anderson Silva. It's either me saying Prodigy, which I don't know why the hell that came out that day. Like, it's Prodigy, and it wouldn't, but Baby J licking the blood off his gloves. But the Anderson Silva fights, the kick to the face against Vitor, the way that he moved and then popped Forrest, and Forrest went running out of the octagon because he was so embarrassed. The things that Anderson did from day one, from that first fight against Chris Lieben, those to me are my greatest memories. And I will also tell you that Dan Henderson and Shogun, holy shit, that was mayhem. The first was absolute mayhem. I mean, Shogun had Dan mounted, full mount for the whole 5th round, but he was too tired to finish him at that point. And then obviously the H-bomb on Bisping and Bisping on Rockhold, I could go on, but I would say Anderson's kick to Vitor, or, Conor doing the things that he did on his way to the top were pretty magical as well.
Yeah, speaking of Conor, who's your pick for tomorrow night between Dustin and Conor?
Man, well, I will tell you this. I would not put any money anywhere on either, because I've always said with these little things, don't waste your money unless you got a lot of money to waste, because it only takes one, much to my point with Jose Aldo. Mm-hmm. I have a feeling Conor's done his homework. And I would lean towards Conor if indeed the strategy plays out that I believe he's put the time into. And again, I've got a good relationship with John Kavanaugh, so I know what they've worked on. He's going to have to switch up his stance. He's going to have to do something different. I mean, people think about the hands and like Conor's a boxer. No, Conor's striking his karate style. Very in and out. A lot more Machida or, Thompson than one would think. Because I said to my trainer, Master McGowan, after the first one, and the second one, and his leg was all beat up, I'm like, why didn't he switch his stance? Like, it seems like so simple. And Paul, Master McGowan, first dude, needless to say, said because of the stance that he has, Goldie, it's not as easy for him to switch stances. I have news for you. Conor is prepared, first of all, to try to defend those kicks. But if Dustin lands a few of them, Conor will switch his stance. And I don't know, I don't have any secret information.
Right.
But if Conor hasn't developed that ability, then he is going to lose again, plain and simple. So I know that he's worked on his footwork and his ability to keep one leg from being compromised so badly that he basically has nothing. And that's what happened in the last fight. So that will be a real key to see what he does with that. Hand speed wise, I give Conor the edge. pure power, they both have great power. Dustin is more powerful. You know, if you put them on the PSI meter, they're both great fighters, and the world's going to be watching. But I'm going to lean towards Connor to take the third part of this trilogy.
Yeah, he definitely don't want to lose again.
No. And I just go back to the Diaz story I told you guys earlier. He's been really good in rematches because he becomes obsessed, like full on obsessed with not like the hatred of that person, because he has a lot of respect for Dustin, and both guys do, and they've been great for each other. But at the end of the day, he's obsessed with winning, and he's obsessed with being the best. And when he has a setback, he comes back better than ever. And he hasn't had a lot of setbacks, but we saw that with Nate years ago, and now we see it with Dustin. Now, if he fought Khabib 100 times, could he have done anything different? I don't know. Could anybody beat Khabib when Khabib's at his best? Probably not. Because his wrestling was just so crazy, and then he'd lace those legs. That's just styles make fights. But in this one with Dustin, I think Connor's going to be the one he's going to be the fucking guy who wins the fight.
And I know this is my last question for you. Shout out to Chasing the Graft. He asked you an autograph question. You told us about you when you worked at a grocery store, or you was at a grocery store, and somebody got your autograph, and your mom told you to always sign autographs, right?
Yep. So my mom said to me, and I was in Sarasota, Florida. It was my first job out of school, you guys. And we were at the grocery store. I think it was Albertsons in Florida. And an older lady, because I was in Sarasota, a lot of blue hairs, came up. She said, "I really like what you're doing. You're doing a nice job. You know, could I get your autograph?" And I was like, "Damn." And my mom, in typical mom fashion, said, "Michael, here's the deal. You may meet one person, you may meet 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, who knows? But you will meet each one of those people once and one time. So you have to treat that person individually, because it might be the 25th person who's asked you for something that night, but it's the first time that person has ever asked you. So treat every person the same. And if you're good to them, they'll tell 25 people. And if you're a jackass, they'll tell 250. And it's just the way I was raised. I'm a hockey player. I mean, Seth and Tracy both. Like, Seth, you said before we started, you didn't think this moment was going to happen. The minute you reached out, this was going to happen. We were trying to book it. But, I mean, it's an honor talking to guys like you, because guys like you have made my job the best job in the world for 2 decades, because there's no shallow end of the pool in MMA or in combat sports. That's the way I look at it.
Right.
And so it's much my honor to talk with guys like yourselves that are such huge fans. That's what Mom said. That's the story that you were talking about, Seth. You will only meet these people once, and the impression you leave on them will be the impression they have for the rest of their life.
That is great advice. Yeah. Great advice.
And how long does it take? I mean, especially now. Click. Like, come on. How long does it take? I mean, truly. Those people who can't take the time, I mean, and let's go back to the pay-per-view era. Not only, you know, was it in my DNA to be a gentleman and to appreciate that they actually wanted a picture or an autograph, they were also paying to watch me at the time. So
yeah,
like, all right, you kind of like putting together a college fund here. So I gotta take a little time, but it was always an honor. It was always an honor, and always will.
I mean, you've done so much. I mean, just a few things you've done. You know, the Best Damn Sports Show. You did stuff for the Cardinals, the Red Wings, the Vikings. You know, UFC. Now, you know, the BYB. What is out there that you still really, really want to do before it's all over?
I like that, before it's all over. So I did a show for Golden Boy with Frank Trigg about a month ago, and it was a pilot for Bally's. And it was boxing and MMA, and it kind of takes in gamification, betting, and I described it with Trigger as, here's what we're putting together tonight. with Bally's Fight Night is what it was called for Golden Boy for Oscar. And the owners of Bally's, I said, it's when I text my son, he doesn't text me back. I text him again. Then I go, dude, what the fuck is, like, Cole, what? Sorry, Dad, I was streaming. Okay, well, now you can do both. And that's the gamification part of this Golden Boy project that I hope will take off. And the pilot was on. I mean, you can watch the pilot. I mean, it's on, it's out there. Take a look at it. There was there's games and there's some pals, but there's sensors in the gloves. I would be really honored and humbled for something to really take off with Oscar De La Hoya. To me, he's the Golden Boy, man. I mean, you grow up the age that I am and watching him and then getting to meet him over time and then watching him that day that we were in production, giving everybody fist pumps and saying, have a great show. I mean, beyond honored to be part of that. So I hope that's the case. And I hope I'm able to do a lot of things. I'd like to start to do some boxing as well. And if I have the opportunity to do hockey again, that's a must, Tracy and Seth, because I am a hockey player. Played my whole life, played at Miami of Ohio, coached level 5 USA hockey. We mostly had a lot of beers and said stupid shit that weekend, but we did learn some stuff. But yeah, I mean, I'm a hockey player. And so the opportunity to do some hockey again at the NHL level would be very magical, especially now because my son loves the game as much as I do. And he was just a little dude when I did it before. So if I'm able to do it now, hey, maybe it could be a Marty and Joe thing or Marty and Tommy thing. You know, maybe Cole and I could share a microphone someday. That would be the best.
Maybe come and do some Reds games.
Hey, you know what? I remember years ago when they were making some moves and Marty was going back to radio and, you know, they weren't sure what they were going to do with TV. And I think my name was in the hat for a half a second.
Really?
How deep it got in the hat, but it was in the hat. And baseball, it's not my first sport, but you know, man, my dad was excited about that possibility. That's for sure.
I bet he was.
Yeah. And what do you got upcoming? And stuff.
So BYB Extreme is 1 week from tonight. So if you go to bybextreme.com, you'll get all the info on the fight card. You can watch some videos about the Trigon, which is like I said, it's the smallest area that battles take place in combat sports. Plain and simple. Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. And Paulie Maldonado he's entertaining anyway. So working with Paulie is going to be an honor for me. And we're going to have a blast. And so I have that a week from tonight. And then some other stuff is in the works. And hopefully that takes off as well. And if it does, I'm going to be a busy man pretty soon again. And that's what I really hope for. You know, I see things like Vitor and Oscar and some of these MMA / boxing events taking place. And I'm not ignoring Ben and Jake, but I'm talking Oscar, I'm talking Floyd, but I'm talking Anderson and Chavez Jr., like legit.
Right.
And if I'm able to, because of my MMA ties, become the blow-by-blow announcer for those type of events, I'm in. Sign me up. Because you put Vitor in front of me, you put Anderson in front of me, you bring Rampage in. Like, you don't even have to call. I'm calling you and begging for the job. I'll pay you. See Rampage throw that big left hook.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Rampage Jackson.
Oh, man. That dude he's the greatest. I love that dude. He's a funny man.
Oh, yeah, dude. He's one of the funniest. And you also got a cameo, right?
Yes, I do. I have a cameo, and I have Memo now, too, which I guess is based in Canada. It was funny. A while back, I get this cameo request, and it's from my son. But it's from my son's buddies. Like, Dad, this guy wants one. And I'm like, okay, dude. So basically, you just paid for a cameo on the credit card that I pay for. So, like, why didn't you just say, Dad, will you do a video? Like, come on, bro. Yeah, no, I did a cameo today for a woman whose birthday is tomorrow. And I'm involved with Vital Elements, which is a CBD company. Mm-hmm. And the boss, Kevin, said, hey, can you do this, Goldie? Did the 24-hour cameo. And I have fun with them. I'm like, oh, tail of the tape. 21 years old tomorrow. I know she's not turning 21, but I played it up. And so it is. It's fun. Cameo is fun. Hit me up on those. I will definitely not one cameo will be virtually identical to the next. I can promise everyone.
Nice.
And send me the link and I'll put that in the description for sure, man. Everybody should definitely want one of them here. It's all over.
It's crazy because most of them come in like that, Seth. If you could use some of your iconic catchphrases, that would be awesome as well. And I'm like, well, I can do that. Yeah.
They're coming.
Yeah, they roll off my tongue pretty well. So I'm in. Yeah, it's fun to do it. I've had a couple of times where people have put a video back on the Cameo app where I see the person reacting to the cameo.
Oh, wow.
Then I go, oh, man.
All worth it.
All worth every minute. Every minute. I mean, it's just I made that dude or that girl or so happy. And I've had, especially during COVID, I had a lot of people, it's hard who lost their jobs and this and that. Can you give Seth and Tracy just a shot in the arm? Just tell them everything's going to be okay, Goldie. They're big fans. And I'm like, yeah, man, better times are coming. Next year will not be virtually identical to this bullshit that we've dealt with this year.
Yeah.
Tracy, Seth, you guys are warriors. Let's do this. It's fun. It's fun. And if it means something to the person who gets it, then it makes it that much more meaningful and pleasurable for me to do.
Sure.
Yeah, man. It was an honor interviewing you. And for sure, man. It was definitely an honor. And hopefully I can have you on another time as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's going to be some good stuff coming up, Seth and Tracy. And if we can talk mostly Bengals, little Browns, but we can all embrace the Buckeyes and we can embrace the Buckeye State. And, you can go south on 71 or 75. That's all good with me.
Yeah.
Go south to Kentucky. That's all good. You go north to that school up north. I lived there for a while. I played a lot of hockey there. My brother was born in Detroit. My daughter was born in Detroit. My son and I went to the Winter Classic at that big football stadium.
Yeah.
Whatever it's called up there, bullshit place. But I would always rather come towards you, Seth. I'd rather go south on 75 than north on 75.
I agree.
Yeah. I'm not a big Detroit Pistons fan either. I'm a Cavs fan.
There you go. Well, so Ron Harper and I were the same 4 years at Miami of Ohio. And, of course, Harper was a Cav and then a Clipper and then a Bull with Michael for the second 3 titles. But I actually was sideline reporter for the Bulls from 88 until 94. So I saw the Bad Boys. I was there.
Yeah.
When you watched The Last Dance, and I know you guys did.
Yeah.
I lived the first 7 episodes. So you want to talk about fights and this and that, greatest memories? I remember Starks jamming over Michael. I remember Michael getting all kinds of shit from Atlantic City, being up there with his dad. And then
oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
The Suns are in the finals, right? And they keep talking about 93. And I'm like, oh, I was there. Pax hit the shot, game 6. Yeah, I know. Broke Chuck Hart. Thunder Dan, good Mid-American Conference boy. KJ, became mayor or whatever he did.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were great. And doing Best Damn with John Sally. I never really brought it up, but Sal loves Michael. But those were great days. Those were the best times for me in basketball. When you get surrounded by Jordan and Barkley, and I know that Michael and Isaiah had their problems, but
right.
You had Larry and you had Magic and you had Malone and Stockton, and it's just it's hard for me to see it replicated. Not saying there's not greatness in the game present day, because there is. And I covered Chris Paul at Wake Forest when he was a freshman. That was the year he was there. But I was doing ACC basketball back then. But yeah, that was a cool thing. Michael Jordan is probably the coolest dude in the history of life.
That's an amazing story, man. The fact that you got to see the GOAT play basketball.
Man, and he is the GOAT. He is the GOAT, and you won't get any argument. You won't win the debate with me. I will never win a debate with Joe. I learned that very quickly. Right, wrong, or indifferent. But if you want to go Michael Jordan with me, I'm not winning. The part when he's talking about Gary Payton, you guys, and the gloves talking about how he wore him out and how he's tired, and Michael looks at the iPad. He's like, "Come on, Gary. Come on, glove. I wasn't tired. Come on." It's the best. It's the absolute best. I'm like, oh, you can't talk shit to the best shit talker, the best player in the world. Plain and simple. Come on, glove. Come on.
Oh, that's great.
Man, you guys are awesome. And I didn't
Thank
know
you,
I
sir.
was going to be able to talk a little Skyline Chili and Rosas and Greater. This has made it even better.
That's awesome.
Talk about everything, man.
Amen. Amen. My grandfather was a union electrician and was one of the electricians that built Riverfront Stadium.
No kidding. Wow.
I got some Cincinnati in me. Buddy.
Piece of history in you. That's
Amen.
nice.
Amen.
Yeah, Cincinnati is 3 hours from where I'm at. I'm in Eastern Kentucky.
Okay. I remember at Miami of Ohio, we'd go down to Cincy all the time. I was working there. We'd hit Lexington and we'd hit Louisville. See, I know how to say it. It's not Louisville.
That's right.
It's Louisville.
Or Louisville.
Louisville.
Truth.
Because they lose to Kentucky all the time.
They do. But those, I mean, Pitino wasn't he everywhere pretty much? But yeah. We can't beat them. I'll go coach them. Oh shit, we still can't beat them. All right, let's try this. But yeah, it's a great state. I had a lot of fun. I was a huge Prince fan back in the day.
Oh yeah.
I remember we would see Prince at what was the Coliseum? It wasn't Riverfront Coliseum, but it was the arena right next to Riverfront Stadium where like Stingers played back in the day.
It's still there, yeah.
Still there, yeah. But then we went down to Louisville and we went to Lexington. We got in the car, we're like, we're going to go see Purple Rain tour again. And so in addition to some Kentucky derbies and Kentucky and Louisville basketball and all that during my days, I checked out, a little Purple Rain and a little bit of Prince in your fine state as well. And I've been in Covington more than once, allegedly.
Well, it's not too far.
No.
Not too far. You take a wrong turn. And, a lot of people don't know that Cincinnati Airport's in the state of Kentucky.
That's right. That's true, yeah.
Yep.
Well, and they talk about the aquarium, the Cincinnati Aquarium is what I hear. It's not in Cincinnati. It's in Newport. Yeah.
That's it. Yep. That's it. Yeah. Now, there was a man who wrote a check there many years ago, but that was another time, and that was his mistake, and I did nothing like that. You guys might
Statute of limitations is over, I would say.
That's it. Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's been an honor. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been my honor too, you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, man. I want to thank Mike Goldberg for being on. This was absolutely honored, living my childhood again, and having Tracy co-host. Y'all have a good night, and definitely you should definitely check out BYB next Friday. Extreme
bare knuckle fighting.
Yeah, bare knuckle fighting. That was a tongue twister, my bad.
Well, you know what? You look me up, and then all I did was make mistakes. If you go anywhere online, and I look at these 3-minute reels of like Goldie's epic mess ups, and I start thinking, all right, I said 3 million words during my UFC career.
Wow.
If I batted 999%, I would have more money than Joe right now. Joe's got a shitload of money.
That's Spotify.
You can find your 4 minutes of me fucking up. All right. It's probably more than that, but have at it. All right.
That's like batting 9.999. So.
Yeah, exactly. So there was this one time.
Can we expect you on Joe Rogan's podcast here soon?
Yeah. I'm in. The big thing with us has just been putting it together, coordinating it with the fact that he has everybody in studio. And for years, we were so close that it was like, I was almost afraid to go on because like we got our stories too. We got our little fun stuff. I'm like, all right, Joe's going to ask me this because he'll ask anything. Man, I'm going to have to lie or I'm going to get in trouble. So I was like relieved for a long time. But yeah, I hope so. And huge respect for Joe. He is and will always be my powerful partner. That's what we've always said. We got the head tap, and so when the time is right, we're gonna have a lot of fun, and we definitely have a lot to talk about.
Best podcaster ever, Joe Rogan is. He's definitely my mentor for sure.
He has done amazing things. He's done amazing things. I remember when he was just getting started with it, and Joe is. You can't say one of a kind, but he's in a small hat of a kind. And last time I checked, the last guy to get $100 million to be exclusive somewhere was a guy named Howard Stern. So when you're Joe Rogan and Spotify brings that same money, I mean, Howard Stern, if you remember that, that's why we have Sirius XM.
Sirius, that's right.
That's it. 100 million to get Howard Stern there. So you start putting that kind of perspective on things, Joe's a fucking rock star.
Them dudes are making them money.
Yes, indeed. If they're paying $100 million, they're making more.
I mean, we're looking at paying people to put us on, let alone getting paid.
No kidding, right? That's what I'm saying. That's it. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Enjoy the fight tomorrow. We'll see if Connor is the fucking winner or if the Pride of Lafayette, Louisiana is able to take fight number 3. I remember I was watching the show and I think it might have been the second fight. And I don't know. I think John might have said it, Anik, J.A. The Pride of Lafayette, Louisiana, and that's where Cormier is from. So I text DC. I go, wait, aren't you the Pride of Lafayette, Louisiana? And of course, DC's like, nah, buddy. Dustin is now. Like, that's why I love you, DC.
DC's a legend.
He is a legend. He's an Olympian, and you can see why he was successful as a mixed martial artist and as a wrestler embracing the grind. Perfect example of what we talked about before. There's elite levels of everything. Olympics is about as elite as you can get.
Oh, yeah. That is the top level.
Yep.
I want to thank, this has been an absolute honor, man. Definitely my favorite podcast ever that I've ever done. And I want to thank Mike Goldberg for being on and Tracy for co-hosting. He's from In Dark Places. Mike Goldberg's cameo will be in the description, and In Dark Places YouTube will be in the description as well. Y'all have a good night, and God bless.